Football season, and that means it's bug season. Heck, who am I kidding? It's always bug season in Texas. And that's why you need Grandeur Pest Solutions in your corner. They're locally owned and operated. They're trained, they're trustworthy, and they have a proven record as they have been in business for almost 10 years. They provide pest control against ants, bed bugs, bees, roaches, fleas, wasps, mosquitoes, rodents, spiders. If it crawls and you don't like it, they're probably going to take care of it for you. Now, they serve all of the Dallas-Fort Worth area, and they're locally owned. These two guys have been running this business since 2013, and every year they get bigger and bigger. But you know what they still do? They still have great customer service. In fact, if you get a hold of them, they're usually going to have your quote and your job ready to go within 48 hours. That's pretty good. Now, you can call them for a free estimate at 469-809-1769. You can find them online at Grandeur4, that's the number 4, shore.com. You can also find them on Facebook. Just type in Grandeur Pet Solutions, and we are so happy that they're title sponsor for OutDrank The Coverage in 2023.
Hey, I mean, that was a good point.
I think we might start seeing some go back.
Here we go! Buck, here we go! Here we go!
Shut up, just shut up, shut up, shut up, just shut up, shut up, shut up, just shut up, shut up, shut up, just shut up, shut up.
This is going to be a tough one. But I mean, honestly, shouldn't we expect this at this point? I mean, this is what watching the Dallas Cowboys have become. It's just like one big ass kick in the nuts. And that's why we put liquor in our guts. Hello, everybody. Terry Bennett, intern Noe. It's a very special OutDrank The Coverage. And no, I don't mean the different strokes. We're going to touch a kid in the back of the bicycle shop, even though that would probably be better right now. We're going to I can't even stop myself laughing. We just got canceled in 2024. Intern Noe, how are you doing? What are you drinking?
If you had asked me yesterday, I would have said depressed. But today, I feel good. I feel a little bit better. Just looking forward to talking a lot of theories in the offseason. But tonight, Cowboys lose. And anytime they lose, I have to drink something that I don't want to drink.
Yeah.
And today, this will be the second time I've done this where I put Stro into some black tea. And I'll be sipping on this today. Stro is Austrian rum, 160 proof. That's 80% alcohol. Tastes like butterscotch for 1 second and then gasoline for the rest.
It still tastes better than diesel. And you have found kind of and we had heard this years ago when we found this drink. I don't even remember how we found it now. I can't remember if it was Jonas from Sweden or just at Total Wine one day and just found like the worst type of liquor. I can't remember. But anyway, we had heard from people that, hey, that's good if you put it in in a hot drink on it when it's 20 degrees outside. Lo and behold, it's 20 degrees outside. And you put it in a hot drink and you have said it doesn't taste bad. Like you could actually drink that as a drink.
Yeah, I could definitely drink it as a drink. You really don't. I mean, you could smell the fumes, but it doesn't really taste like Stro. So I really think we could make this into an iced tea, add some sugar, make it a little bit sweeter. So Super Bowl weekend, when we watch the game, I think I'm going to try this out and see what happens. I might do a small sample. I don't want to just do a big batch of it and then we hate it and have to throw it all away. So
yeah, no, that's a good point.
How are you doing, sir?
I'm doing like shit. I know why you're better today. I get it a little bit like that, but the Eagles losing just, okay. It's just, but I will say this. I am over like the loss. I've already moved on. I told you this before. The Texas Rangers just restored all my faith in sports this year. The Longhorns added to that. And Dallas had a great season. I still enjoy the fact that Dallas over the last 3 years have made the playoffs every time. and they've won 12 games every time. I know they haven't got past the division, and that sucks, but I will still contend that if you can't get to the 12 wins and you can't get into the playoffs, then it doesn't matter. I mean, you got to get there, and eventually that breaks through, right? Eventually, right? I
just want to let you know that this is a record. No team has ever won 12-1 games 3 straight years and didn't make it to the conference championship game. So cheers to Dallas for breaking records.
Also, they became the first number 2 seed to lose to a 7 seed in the history. Now, of course, there hasn't been a 7 seed forever, but still, it's Dallas. It's what we do now. I didn't get to say what I was drinking. I'm drinking gut rot. Like literally my gut is springing right now as we drink. I don't care. Pull back the curtains. We've talked about this before. Because of how we do these shows in season, I really can't drink as much as I want to during the show because usually I'm literally doing this show after doing another show and before I have to edit for the day. So I might have a drink. I might have a sip. Last week I did a couple shots of diesel. I think I did 3 shots of diesel before. Tonight, I messaged you early and like, I'm getting fucking tore up from the floor up. I am going to finish this night at 3 a.m. because I don't sleep when I drink. 3 a.m, eating pizza rolls and crying and screaming out, Dak, why, Dak? Why? And he's going to look at me and he's going to say, Terry.
Here we go. Buck, here we go. Here we go.
And I'm going to say,
Shut up.
oh, man.
Cheers.
Cheers, by the way. Yeah, let's have fun. Screw it. This is all in fun. And I will say this, I even told you this, doing this show as a fan is very therapeutic because you have to step back from your emotional side and go, okay, what do I think needs to happen? So what we're going to do on the show tonight is we are going to focus on the Cowboys to begin things because, at the end of the day, I know some people that have listened to us or watch us, they're Cowboy fans. Like, y'all don't really, y'all talk Cowboys, but y'all talk the whole league. Well, yeah, it's because we know they're going to lose in the first round. So we want to be able to have a show this week. No, so we will concentrate on Dallas to begin things. Now, we will talk a little bit about what we think they should do going forward, but also that's off-season content too. I don't think we're anywhere near knowing. I will say this. I do feel that it's over 70% that Mike McCarthy stays. I think it's under 20% that Dan Quinn stays no matter what. And that we can talk about whether that's fair or not. We'll talk about that. This is what I'm going to say about the game. I'm not going to get into the breakdown of the game and all, but here's the thing. And I said this on Sports Rehab. I fully believe that this game is 1,000% first off on Dan Quinn and by proxy Mike McCarthy because they came into this game and they did what I hate coaches doing, and they decided they were going to try to do everything different than they normally had, I guess to confuse Green Bay, and all that did was blow up in their face.
You hit the nail on the head. I would definitely start by blaming Dan Quinn for this loss. Having said that, I know Dak didn't have a good game. He didn't. You look at the stats, and it would be very misleading because the stats look great for Dak, but those 2 interceptions early were bad. All 3 of those touchdowns he threw were all in garbage time.
Yeah.
It was 48-16 when they finally started scoring. And I remember you were even messaging me jokingly, "Oh, it's a 2-score game. Dallas has the ball. Here we go. Here we go."
Because that's what they do now in big games. They do the get down and then almost come back and make you feel better. Now, this one, it never got close. I know the score is 16. It never got that close. But, I mean, that's kind of what they've done for the last 5 to 6 years. It just sucks. Like, just as a fan, all jokes aside, all trolls, all memes, all that, just as a pure fan of your team. I've said this many times. Hopefully I live to 90, and if I don't see another Cowboys Super Bowl, I'm fine. I mean, it would suck because then they would reach a historic level, but I just as a personal fan, I'm fine. I remember the late 70s, early 80s. I lived through the 90s. So I've gotten to see all that. I know what that feels like. But what sucks about it is it's all the people like Stephen A. Smith, who does it as a troll, but he's right. All the people on our Sports Rehab that does the memes, all the memes and jokes, fuck, they're right. I mean, they're right. Whether we can say what we want about Dak, and we can say if we think he could win a big one, or Jerry Jones running the franchise. Right now, as of today, 2024, January 16th, They're all right. Every meme about the Cowboys is 100% right. That's the part that sucks the most.
Well, there are memes about the Cowboys because, we're not those fans, but there are certain Cowboy fans that really annoy people to a point where seeing them fail is a national pastime for them.
Well, yeah, and the Cowboys are the Yankees of football. They're hated on just because of who they are. Now, I will say this: I laugh at people claiming that Cowboy fans are bandwagon fans. Look, they haven't won since 1995. You're not a bandwagon if you became a fan of the Cowboys in between 95 and now. You're not a bandwagon. You've earned your fandom at this point because this is the longest stretch that this franchise has gone in history of not being a championship team. They're a relevant team, but they're not a championship team.
Yeah, I think I'm one of the younger fans of the Cowboys that, grew up watching them being good and winning Super Bowls. And I'm 39 years old. I'll be 40 pretty soon. And I was 11 years old going on 12 when they won their last one. So as a kid, barely going through puberty, I was only used to seeing this dynasty. Looking back, obviously, I saw them being stripped of talent after talent. That 92 team with all that depth turned into a 95 team that was running on fumes. And it's just harder for me to see them ever breaking through. And I'm not sure it's a personnel issue. I think they have enough talent on this team to do it. But there are some deficiencies, and I think they'll address it in the offseason, hopefully. I really do trust Will McClay and Stephen Jones to, shore up the middle of the defense, get a new coordinator, and then get some depth along the offensive line and figure out the running back situation because they're going to need two, like a thunder and lightning combo next season because the Tony Pollard experiment didn't work out as we thought it would.
I mean, again, though, you and I were talking before we began. First off, this is nothing on Zach Martin. I love him. He looks like he's going to be a Hall of Fame player. It's kind of odd that there's a good chance that we're going to have more Hall of Fame players from 2010 on than what we had in the Super Bowl era. And I know it's a longer era, but the Super Bowl era was a more impactful era. But you got to feel Tyron Smith's going to be a Hall of Famer. Zach Martin's going to be a Hall of Famer. Jason Witten's going to be a Hall of Famer. DeMarcus Ware is a Hall of Famer. I still think eventually Tony Romo gets in. I think not only because of people have started to look back on his career and realize, Jesus Christ, he took 5-11 teams and drugged them to 8-8, but also him being a broadcaster and being all over the news, that's going to help him. Yet it's been just year after year of not coming through in the playoffs. And I know the constant is Jerry Jones, but you can't point to Jerry Jones and say he cost them this. He put a team. Now you could say, well, it's the coaches. I mean, again, this is a coaching staff that with Dan Quinn have won 12 games back-to-back years. The defense is ranked in the top 3 in back-to-back years. They've done everything that they're supposed to, yet you can attest to this. I've been saying this since last year. I've been saying this since the moment they named him defensive coordinator, that Dan Quinn's going to put up a lot of pretty stats, but when it comes to playing good offenses, his defenses tend to struggle.
You're correct again. Ever since he's been here, it has been the same formula. They pad their defensive stats and the offense too, but let's focus on Quinn. They've been padding their defensive stats against inferior opponents, and when they play a team that's just good to great, however barometer you want to, 500 or better, they tend to struggle.
Yep.
They tend to struggle. It's because it's very predicated on getting a pass rush, getting turnovers,
getting a lead,
and getting a lead and having your offense being in rhythm. So it allows your defense to just be aggressive, and which creates the turnovers. Dallas was top 5 defense yards wise. They allowed the fewest points or second fewest points, or maybe fifth fewest points. I think they were fifth in points. Turned the ball over, got sacks. It was glossy, but a lot of it was against inferior opponents. And then when you look back at the teams they beat that were 500 or better, Seattle and Philadelphia, they beat them at times when those teams were kind of going this way.
Rams too.
And so Rams, yeah, they beat the Rams, who made the playoffs. They won 6-7 to sneak in. And great season for the Rams. overall. But when we played them and they were struggling, Kyron Williams didn't play. Matthew Stafford got hurt during the game. They were not the team that ended up almost beating the Lions in the wild card round on Sunday.
You, you bring up the Rams. I just want to say this real quick. And I know the Rams got beat. And I know Tampa got maybe the best matchup they could have in the playoffs, and they're kind of doing with smoke and mirrors. But we heard when the Rams front-loaded everybody and ran for a Super Bowl, and we heard when Tampa Bay front-loaded everybody, got Tom Landry. Wow, brought that fucker up from the grave, got Tom Brady, and they won a Super Bowl. We heard from Dallas, we don't want to do that. We don't want to front end. We don't want to get into cap hell. We don't want to win a Super Bowl or almost play for a Super Bowl now and it take 5 years to get back. Well, guess what? Both of those teams are now back into the playoffs. And I know Tampa Bay played in a crappy division, but you know what? They still made the playoffs and they won a playoff game. So one of the biggest things that the foundation that Jerry Jones over the last 6 years has been about, and I'm not saying it's wrong, but the foundation of we'll pay our guys. We won't go get free agents that are costly. We're going to do what it takes, and we're going to be a team that's consistently there. That's great, but you're not breaking through. You're consistently getting beat in the first or second round. I'm almost at that point now, dude. And again, this is speculation, and we'll talk more in depth in the offseason. I'm almost like, F it, bring Bill Belichick in, bring a bunch of veterans in, go for a 2-year run, and if it doesn't work, that's it. Hell, I'll go ahead and say this. And now apparently they might have not have went out on the best terms, but shit, tell Big Bill to call Tom Brady and say, hey, would you like to run it one more time in the Star? Like, wouldn't it be awesome to win as the Dallas Cowboys? I mean, I don't know what to do. I'm at the point now where I can't, and it's not that it's wrong, but I just can't buy the, hey, let's stay the road. Let's hoe the road. We're going to eventually break through. You said it best in the middle of the game. And yes, come September, we're going to be excited. We're going to be excited for football, but I'm not excited about whatever Dallas does in the regular season. I don't give a shit. I don't care if they're 12-5. I don't care if they're 9-8. I don't care till the first round of the playoffs. No, actually, I don't even care till the second round of the playoffs. That's what they've done to me and you. And you and I are some of the most ardent defenders of the Cowboys and what they should do. And hey, they're doing the right thing. And hey, they've got a great roster, et cetera, et cetera. I'm past that now.
You know, I'm a known homosexual, and I'm currently a Dacolite. I just made that up.
I like that. Dacolite.
I feel that lesser quarterbacks have won Super Bowls, and I think Dak's a really good quarterback. He's capable of winning a Super Bowl, so I'm fine with him staying. I'm actually happy with if he stays. But yeah, I'm going to need to see some drastic moves, coaching-wise, personnel-wise. For the most, the personnel is mostly fine. There's some, like I already mentioned, the linebacking, the linemen, running game. Scheme-wise on offense needs to change a little bit. Defense, the whole philosophy needs to change. They need to abandon that idea. They need to have something that's more consistent and reliable. And with Overshown coming back next season, I think they're going to be in a really good position to do that. But anyway, we'll talk more about that in the offseason. Yeah, and right now I'm just kind of lost. I really don't know what to think of this team anymore. They're good enough, but right now, if nothing changes, there's a cap to this team, and that's a playoff team won't make it past the second round because they're just not good enough. And
yeah, you said it best right there. They're just not good enough. They're good, but they're not good enough. They're in an NFC that even if they rolled everything basically the same next year, barring the normal cut, ebb and flow of a roster, who they draft and all that, they're probably winning. Now, they're in a tougher schedule this year on paper. Now, again, that could change because we were talking about this schedule last year like this was going to be a tough schedule, and it kind of turned out not to be. But on paper, they're in a tougher schedule, but I still think they're a 10 to 12 win team. First in the NFC East or second. Unless the Giants and Washington just do something drastic. And maybe they do. Maybe one of them brings in Russell Wilson. And I know you go, Russell Wilson. I still think he's the type of guy, if he's in a situation where it's kind of like where nobody expects him to win, but he has a good roster, I would watch out for him. But I still think Dallas is in the playoffs. But again, what's going to happen in the playoffs? And we've now got to decide, how are we going to pay CeeDee Lamb? How are we going to pay Micah Parsons? How are we going to pay Dak? Now, I still think that's going to be worked out. I'm not worried about him going into the season at $60 million. He's not going to. Do you do something drastic though? Do you trade a Micah Parsons? You trade Micah Parsons right now, you might get 3 first rounds and a couple second rounds.
You first figure out who your coaching staff is going to be.
Yep.
Then figure out what your offensive and defensive philosophies are going to be.
Yep.
And then you start attacking the personnel. I really think, if you're going to do something like trade Parsons, I'm not sure if that's the right move right now.
I don't think it is.
I know what the right move is. Yeah. They need to make something drastic.
I agree.
I think it just needs to start. It needs to start at the coaching spot first before you attack the personnel. So right now, I really don't know what to do until they address the coaching side, especially on the defensive end. But yeah, something drastic, because I already told you everything they need to upgrade. I'm not sure what that will entail unless I know who the next coach is going to be. I will say this, though. One of the 2 things that gave me some therapy relief, mental health, when I was messaging you, was naming all the different coaches. Outside of the Eagles losing, was naming like all the different head coaches that could possibly be a Cowboy head coach.
Yeah.
It was more just being funny, but I started just thinking about, okay, let me go down the rabbit hole. Let me start naming college coaches, like FCS coaches and high school coaches. Let's resurrect GA Moore and bring him up to the big level.
He's still alive. He's still alive. He's not dead. Watch out tomorrow. It'll be big news. GA Moore has passed. No, but so let me ask you this. If you're Dallas, Dan Quinn's probably gone. I think.
Yeah.
Maybe not. But if
this is Dallas, so you can't assume anything at this point.
I mean, I think he's gone because he's got a job, like a head coaching job. But if you're Dallas,
do you think someone's going to offer him a head coaching job after that performance?
Yeah, because one game won't decide that. Look, I'll say this. I don't understand why people are wanting to give him another head coaching job after his last head coaching job. And I know it's fair or not, but when you're up 28-3 in a Super Bowl and you lose, there's a thing, and I said this I've always said this, but I said it after 2011 Texas Rangers. When you lose a certain way, I think I don't care how young the team is. Sometimes it's better just to tear it away because that cancer just always sits there. And I do think that this playoff performance, and it's not that they gave up 48 points. It's that they went out and did exactly everything that they haven't done all year. That's the thing that confuses me. I understand why Mike McCarthy on offense did it, because I think they realized on offense, oh crap, we've got to go back to where we were a couple years ago and run the ball on first down and run the ball on second down, because we can't give Green Bay the ball back because our defense ain't going to stop them. And so I legitimately, and maybe I'm trusting too much in Mike McCarthy, but I feel like that offense played against good, solid, decent defenses during the year and scored. And I know, San Francisco, that's fine. But I'm talking about like the Eagles. They scored both times against the Eagles. And I know the Eagles finished weak, but the Eagles had a solid defense. The Rams had a solid defense, and the Cowboys moved the ball at will on them. The Detroit has a solid defense, and the Cowboys moved the ball at will on them. So maybe I'm more forgiving of him than I am Dan Quinn, but it just felt like Mike McCarthy just felt like, oh crap, we've got to somehow keep the ball away from Green Bay instead of it being the exact opposite. It should have been Green Bay playing, and that's what they did in the first quarter. We've got to keep the ball away from Dallas's offense.
Green Bay's undefeated in AT&T, man.
It blows my mind.
I think I saw that they were 6-0 because they played the Steelers in the 2010 season in the Super Bowl. Then they beat the Cowboys in 2016, and then this past
there was
2 days ago in the playoffs.
There was the game that we call the Robert gets hit game. Very much inside joke, where Dallas is up really big in that game, and Dallas did one of their collapses. That was back when that's what Dallas did. Dallas jump up 21-0, and then that defense would be crappy. And so there was that one too. But yeah, right now Green Bay's. It's funny, we're all talking about San Francisco now. All of a sudden, Green Bay's now the because they lost last year when Dallas basically outplayed them for 3 quarters. And none of that matters. That's just how it works. And good job, Matt LaFleur. Let's first off, I think people have forgotten how well thought of Matt LaFleur is as a head coach. Also, speaking of Dan Quinn and that Atlanta staff, on that staff, Matt LaFleur, on that staff, Kyle Shanahan. And those 2 guys, and there's a third one too, and I can't remember who it is right now, but all 3 of them, whenever they play a Dan Quinn defense, they just absolutely destroy them. That tells me he was so worried about that. He thought he was going to throw a curveball. And hey, if that would have worked, we'd be singing his praises. But that's how that works. When you try something new, if it doesn't work, you take the blame. When it works, you take the credit. It felt like Micah Parsons wasn't involved in the game plan. I mean, they had 2 holding calls on him. Why are you not sending him every play after that point? It was because it was 2 different players. It was obvious the Packers were going to struggle with him. And so what do? They spend 90% of the time dropping him in coverage. That made no sense to me.
They were so worried about that passing attack. They again, like you said, they worried about the passing attack, make life hard for Love, and they did not. They didn't want to rush Parsons as much as they should have, and I've never seen so many talented secondary players look so confused. I mean, they had these first and second year receivers just running wide open almost every play.
Every catch Romeo Doubs caught, I'm not talking about open. I'm talking about Madden 24 on the Xbox and PlayStation 5 open, where you're running these trick plays that fakes the computer out, and the computer reacts every time to the same routes, and you figure that out, and you just spam that. I mean, the dude, it reminded me so much of Randy Moss Thanksgiving, where at one point Dobbs had 5 catches, 125 yards. And look, you and I both feel that, and I felt this going into the game. We talked about this last week on the show. Look, Green Bay's young. Green Bay's going to be good. That's fine. But watch this week when San Francisco, Green Bay might beat them, but I can promise you, San Francisco will not let Green Bay have 4 guys running wide open or a tight end run a 3-move route. Now, if you don't know what a 3-move route is, that's when you got a guy that turns in, then turns out, and then turns up. And not only did a tight end do that, but he was so wide open, he literally could stop, catch the ball, turn and look at the field, and then run into the end zone.
It was so annoying to watch, especially when the Cowboys were starting to drive on offense. And you knew full well that the defense was going to make a stop. It was very sad to see. As a Cowboy fan, it just leaves you wanting to drink more.
Well, and
yeah, you were so right, dude. You were so right. They were so open every play. And then Aaron Jones was having another great day against the Cowboys. He had another 100-yard game. I think he played the Cowboys 4 times. He's had a 100-yard game every time.
Well, and the sad thing is, the run defense started well. But you know what Green Bay did? Green Bay had the lead. And so Green Bay was like, we can keep running. It's fine. We're going to keep running. Because we know that eventually either we're going to wear that down or, hey, Romeo Doubs is going to be wide open or Jaden Reed's going to be wide open, so we'll just throw to them. DeMarcus Lawrence, sadly, had a great game, but even him, he commits an offsides on a 3rd down that you had them ready to kick a field goal after the interception. Little things like that changes things. And again, I'm not absolving Dak by any stretch. I'm not absolving the offense. I think Mike McCarthy got into the same problem that Dan Quinn did. He went against his script all year long. Dallas has been great on first down passing all year long. Green Bay has struggled on first down passing. So what does Dallas do? When the game mattered, they threw the ball 3 out of 12 times. That makes no sense to me. But I feel that Mike McCarthy realized we're going to get in a shootout, we're going to lose. Now, I'd rather him been like, screw it, let's get in a shootout. I trust the offense in a shootout. But I don't know, man. Dak, I said this. I said this before we started recording. We always kind of have a little mini show before, just kind of get our thoughts. But I feel that for the first time, this team choked. This team felt the pressure. The drive start. It's one of those things where, man, if the coin flip goes Dallas's way, we might be talking about a different game. But as soon as Green Bay marches right down the field and scores, and as soon as Dallas has the drop on the first play, and if CeeDee Lamb catches that, he might have ran forever. I mean, everything was perfect on that. It just didn't happen. But for some reason, and I say some reason, the reason is there was pressure. You could see it in Lamb's face. You could see it in Dak's face. They felt the pressure. That's on the coaching staff. You can never let your players feel the pressure. That's the thing Jimmy Johnson talks about in his book. The whole reason he went on radio back in 1993 and said, "We will win." You put it in 3-inch headlines, is he realized he felt that they were a better team, but he needed his team to feel that they understood that he felt that, and he took all the pressure and put it on himself. This coaching staff did not do that. They put all the pressure on the players this week.
I mean, just the play calling alone on both sides suggested that the coaches didn't really trust the players. And it's very odd to believe that, considering what they did during the regular season. If you really don't feel that way, then I don't know. Like I look at those teams. Like to me, that was objectively almost as easy of a win as possible. Even like when Green Bay went on a roll to close out the season, but in these games, it wasn't like they were blowing teams out. They barely won at Carolina. They won an ugly game against Chicago. These are not teams that are ready or on the Cowboys level.
Nope.
So it just baffles me that they can come into Texas Stadium, AT&T Field as a 7 seed and just blow the Cowboys away. It is the most Cowboys thing to happen, but yeah, I shouldn't be surprised, but I'm still surprised.
I like that right there. It is the most. Again, maybe that's why at the end of the day, you just shake your head. You just go. I mean, again, what else can we say? All right. So again, I gave my odds. I think Mike McCarthy's back, unless Mike McCarthy doesn't want to be back. I think Mike McCarthy's back twofold. I do think that there is something to, you've won 3 seasons at 12 wins. You've made the playoffs in 3 of the years. You've won a playoff game. You've been competitive in one playoff game, the one that they lost to San Francisco. I also, no, the first game. I think remember the first one, they come back, and honestly,
I was more on Garoppolo trying to bring the Cowboys back into the game than the actual Cowboys.
You're not wrong, but I'm just still saying I felt when Dallas started that drive, I thought they were gonna put it in the end zone. I really did. At that point, it felt like they kind of figured out San Francisco's defense. But anyway, point is, I think with Jerry Jones's age, there's no way we're doing a rebuild until he's not maybe of this earth, but until he's not controlling the Cowboys, because he's too old to go, okay, I'm going to rebuild this for 5 years. So that's why I'm almost like, well, then, dude, put all your chips in. F it. Put all your chips in. Sign every free agent you can. Bring in Bill Belichick. Run it 1 year, 2 years maybe, and see what happens. Screw it. What's it hurt? If it doesn't work in 2 years. Huh?
I was going to say, this year, it's starting to remind me of the 94 and 97 49ers, where they just went all in.
And it worked for one of them.
Yeah, it worked for one of them. The other one cost Seifert his job. But yeah, 100% agree. That is the variable no one's talking about, is Jerry Jones's age. He turns 82 this year. He finally relented and put Jimmy Johnson in the Ring of Honor. He might be feeling his time is almost up. This is a good point. Like this almost supports. Someone supports the idea of getting in an all-time great coach and get all these veterans and all this talent and just start spending as much as you can and just try to run it back again and see what happens. My prediction is, I still think what I want to happen is different. What my prediction is. My prediction is they're going to keep McCarthy for another year. Dan Quinn's going to go somewhere else. New defensive coach, new philosophy. They changed their defense up the middle, so tackle, linebacker, maybe not safety. On the offensive side, they're going to draft 2 running backs that are completely different and hope for the best. They're going to get some depth at left tackle and right guard, and they're just going to run it back and see what happens.
Right tackle.
Yeah, Terrence Steele started great, but then he didn't really finish great. So yeah, that's what I think is most realistically going to happen. Now, what I want to happen, long term wise, I think more long term. I think it teams like this, like I'd rather them just tear it down. To be honest with you, but given Jerry Jones' age, that ain't gonna happen.
Well, and with Jerry Jones's age, you can have the best of both worlds. You can load up for the next 2 years with a Bill Belichick, even a Mike McCarthy, but you can load up with the next 2 years and be like, we're going to front load everything, and we're going to send Zach Martin off with a possible chance. We're going to send Dak off with a possible chance. And then in 2 years, you come out the other side and you still have Micah Parsons and you still have CeeDee Lamb as your two foundation guys on each side of the ball. Tyler Smith will be he's still young enough. Tyler Badaz is still young enough. Tyler Badaz had a really solid year as a center. No, he's never going to be Travis Frederick, but he's a commendable center.
Top half of the league.
Top half of the league. Now, I will go back to this shows, though, again, I've been 100% like Will McClay, and the drafting has been really good, but I do not like what they did with the draft this year. Mozzie Smith is just isn't it. And you could say, well, hey, in 2 or 3 years, that's great. But this is a team that should be drafting for people that are immediately ready to play because you are a team trying to make the Super Bowl. You're not building for the future. That's why I was saying this before the draft. Why are they talking about drafting a tight end so early? Jake Ferguson looks like he's going to be the real deal. And lo and behold, Jake Ferguson has been the real deal. You literally wasted your first 2 draft picks last year. They can't do that this year. History says they won't. But again, why does it take that every other? Why do we have to have a Taco Charlton to figure things out and then forget it again and do it again with Mozzie Smith? I'm fine with the drafting. I'm not saying it's bad, but it does feel like every couple of years, right when you need it to be the perfect draft, or at least a good draft, we have the draft that we had last year.
If Taco Charlton and Mozzie Smith have taught Will McClay and the Cowboys staff anything, is don't draft a Michigan defensive lineman in the first round.
And yet some and I know it's way early. It's way early, but I still like to look. A lot of projections, when I say a lot, I counted 6 out of 10 that I read had them taking the interior tackle from Michigan this year. And he's a great player. But at some point you go, hey, fool me once, shame on me. Fool me twice, shame on me. Fool me 3 times, shame on me. God damn it, stop drafting Michigan player. Oh, man, this is so frustrating. The alcohol's starting to kick in. So I don't know, man.
Anyway, after Jim Harbaugh becomes the head coach for the Cowboys next season, they're going to keep Aubrey, and they're going to get some great running. Frank Gore Jr. is going to come to the Cowboys.
Down.
I'm telling you, the 2 things that Harbaugh does, he always gets a good running back, and he always gets a great kicker. I don't know how he does that every single time, but he does.
Hey, how much would the Cowboy fandom's head explode if Jim Harbaugh, everybody would love it. And then Jim Harbaugh's first press conference, he's pulling Al Pacino from Any Given Sunday. I want to let y'all know that I am the new head coach of the Cowboys, and I've signed Colin Kaepernick to a 5-year, $250 million deal. He's my starting quarterback. Oh, God.
You know what? I would actually like the chaos. I would not expect anything good to happen for the Cowboys next season, but I would love the chaos.
Hey, if we're gonna be bad, let's be fun bad. Let's not be 12-5 and collapse.
That's what I want. I don't want hope.
Roll out Trey Lance.
They're gonna be bad. Yeah, start them.
Yeah, I mean, seriously, I have no problem, dude. If Jerry Jones announced tomorrow, and again, he won't. And I get it, because if I was Jerry Jones at 82, hell, I'm at 48 and feel like 82. But if I'm Jerry Jones at 82, I get you feel that you're close. But in the alternate world, I would love for Dallas to be like, you know what? Hey, Dak, we're gonna sink this $60 million. We're gonna sit it for a year. We're gonna take the hit, Trey Lance, because Trey Lance is a free agent after this year. We're gonna roll the ball out with Trey Lance. We're gonna give him 17 starts. We're going to see if he's the future, because he's 24 years old, and we're going to make that preemptive start that maybe they could have done in 2010 or 2011. And look, I love Tony Romo, but I'm just saying this idea of, hey, we got to keep rolling out the same thing because they're almost there. It hasn't worked for 30 years. Stop doing that. Let's be bold. Be bold. Start it over. And let's see if Trey Lance pulls out one of those years where, holy crap, he's actually as good as what people drafted him for. I know they won't, but man, I wish, because I don't want to see this again. I don't want to see 12-5 and have any confidence or lack of confidence going into a playoff game.
He's only had one start. Injuries derailed in his career. He's healthy. I want to see him have an opportunity. The Cowboys didn't give up too much. They got a capable backup in Cooper Rush, who they're only paying about $2 million a year. So they're in pretty good shape. If you're going to get rid of Dak, get something in return. He's only 30 years old. They have pieces to sell if that's the plan they're going to go. That's really what I want them to do. I want to tear it all down, play young guys, see what happens. Just get some capital. That's what I want to do. I don't think that's going to happen.
No,
but I'd be all for it.
Hey,
I would definitely be all for it.
And the thing is if you tore it down, doesn't mean you struggle next year. If Trey Lance is the quarterback you think he is, you still got CeeDee Lamb. You still got Tyler Smith. You still got Zach Martin. You probably, if you're tearing it down, I don't know if you've re-signed Tyron Smith or not. But you still have 3/5 of an offensive. You got Lyle Collins back. And I wouldn't mind saying, okay, look, Collins, you've done this at tackle. You've made all the tackle money. How about going to guard and be good at guard? And let's kick Tyler Smith out left. And then Tyron Smith can either play right tackle or Tyron Smith can go into the sunset, get his Hall of Fame, and move on. Maybe he plays somewhere else for a couple of years. But you do all that, you still can be competitive especially in today's NFL where 9-8 usually will get you around the playoff spot. We don't have to be 12-5. We could be 9-8 in the 5th seed, and I'd be perfectly happy with that.
Or you could be 9-8 in the 7th seed and beat the crap out of the 2 seed.
Going to Green Bay.
It has happened. Yeah.
Damn it. So we will be doing more, of course, in the offseason. Intern Noe and I were just talking about if big Cowboy news breaks, we'll try to have a show within that day, maybe the next day. I don't think anything big is going to break other than Dan Quinn leaving. I just don't. I think the difference now is I don't know if Dallas is going to want him back if he doesn't get a head coaching. Because I do think some of these guys are going to be like, ooh, do we really want to hire him 28-3? And then after all the offensive guys left, the Atlanta Falcons slowly got worse and worse and worse. And then he's been a defensive coordinator, and it looks good against bad teams. But in saying all that, if you're a team that hasn't won in a long time, 12-5 and a first-round exit looks mighty nice.
Yeah. I'm just, I 100% agree yet again. But, now that I'm thinking about it, I'm thinking Bill Belichick's going to be the head coach. Nick Saban's going to come out of retirement to be the new DC. And then we're going to get Eric Bieniemy to run the offense. But we're going to ask him to be more of a balanced attack. So, yeah, I am very hopeful what's happening, what's going to happen next season.
All right. Let's talk about the real Texas team. The Houston Texans.
Helmet down.
Helmet is down.
Oh.
This helmet has down. The Cowboys have died. No, I want to pat myself on the back on this one. I don't like to do that a lot because my shoulders are old and they hurt. But I said this last week. I didn't get all the Browns love. Like, it made no sense to me. Like, yeah, they're a well-built team, but the Joe Flacco, as great as Joe Flacco is, the negative about Joe Flacco is he keeps throwing even when he makes mistakes, and we saw that in the Houston game. It finally came to bite them as the Texans get back-to-back pick six. They go on to win. But even before the pick six, man, C.J. Stroud, dude, he looks special. Now, I do want to remind all the Texans fans, Dak Prescott looked really good his first year too, and he's been really good. This whole idea is that C.J. Stroud is now in the second round, so that means going forward, there's that natural progression. That doesn't always happen. I love what the Texans have done, but man, I don't know. I feel like they're going to come way down to earth this week against the Ravens.
Oh yeah, it might. I mean, we can do a prediction of that game right now, but yeah, I really feel the Ravens play so well defensively, they're going to give Stroud the problems that. Which is funny because outside of Baltimore and Buffalo, the best defense we saw this season was the Browns, but they got picked apart by Stroud,
because they
and he
couldn't
was
get
just
a pass rush.
dinking and dunking. Couldn't get a pass rush. Now, most of the plays were big plays, like, there's a 38-yarder to Nico Collins. Brevin Jordan had the big 76-yarder. Dalton Schultz got his only catch, and it was a 37-yard touchdown. So Houston was really attacking them with big plays. That kind of made up most of their offense. Outside of that, it was just more of a, just get to the finish line type deal. But yeah, a rookie quarterback, first game with a rookie head coach, getting the win, big time, and then your defense helps you out with 2 pick sixes. I thought going into this game that Cleveland would win again because Flacco is unflappable, really, in the playoffs. He's kind of the same guy he is in the regular season, but
Yeah.
tensions up, pressure's up, kind of like what you saw with the Cowboy game. There's a lot of pressure, but he's just the same guy, regular season playoffs. So he just appears to be playing better in the playoffs. But in this game, he played well for a half, and then they got shut out in the second half. And Houston, that third quarter basically did the Browns in, and that was their season. But you know what? They were 11-6. I kind of wish Deshaun Watson was healthy because it would have been nice to see him coming back to Houston.
The massage.
Yeah, the revenge game for Watson. Just see what would happen, but I'll have to wait another year for that. So,
Well, and by the way, go ahead.
I was like, kudos to the Houston Texans. They exceeded expectations. They should not have won 10 wins.
I agree.
They should not have won 10 games. They should not have won. They should not have won the division. But they're doing it the right way. They got a lot of talent, a lot more than I thought they did. And they're going to be a real dangerous team next season.
The hardest step, though, is that second step. They've laid that first one, and again, and Dallas fans are the worst because we saw it happen in the 90s where 89, they're terrible. 90, they're a little bit better. 91, they're good. 92, they're winning Super Bowls. That's not how – it's not always that progression. I will say this, though, and I like him as a player, but this game, again, proves why Dallas didn't keep Amari Cooper. Amari Cooper is a hell of a wide receiver. He puts up a hell of stats. But Amari Cooper, when the coverage starts to roll to him, he doesn't seem to be able to get open consistently enough.
Now, he had that big game against the Texans in the regular season, but a lot of it was attributed to the way Houston's offense was approaching the game with Case Keenum at quarterback as opposed to C.J. Stroud. Now you see the reverse case happen, and it was a different result. He got basically held in check, and like you said, things have to go a certain way for Cooper to have big games, and it just didn't happen. If I were the Browns, I'd still be happy going into the next season. They're going to be healthier. Hopefully, Deshaun Watson's shoulders 100% because they're going to be a pretty dangerous team, and then Chubb will be back.
I think everybody. I think people have forgotten about Nick Chubb.
Yeah, I mean Jerome Ford was serviceable. They had to beg Kareem Hunt to come back, and they paid him handsomely for this season. But Nick Chubb is their engine. If Nick Chubb's in that field, this is a whole different Browns team. They actually might have been the 1 seed if he was healthy.
Yeah, I agree. All right, so the Texans win. Kansas City beats Miami 26-7. I mean, Miami's kind of feels like Dallas a little bit, kind of like the beginning of Dallas a couple years ago, where everybody's like, well, hey, look, man, they had a lot of injuries on defense, which they did. I'm not saying they didn't. But that weather and just the style of football should have played better for their defense, and it didn't. The offense, I go back to the guy on Sports Rehab who always wants to point out Tua. I think Tua literally is starting to look a lot like Dak Prescott. Like, hey, yeah, he's great in a Week 5 game against a 2-3 team, but what's he going to do when he's consistently playing the good defenses? Can he make the plays? At least for this game, he didn't.
You hit the nail on the head once again. Miami's the AFC version of Dallas. They play great against superior opponents, struggle against good teams. You look at Tua, didn't even throw for 200 yards in this game. Tyreek Hill, outside of a 53-yard touchdown, he had 4 catches for 9 yards outside of that.
Yep.
So he was virtually ineffective. None of the receivers really showed up. This is an offense that's predicated on speed, and this, wind chill, negative 27 degrees. It really played a factor in this game. So that's one hand. They should have took care of business and beat the Bills to close out the regular season. So they could have got the 2 seed. They had 2 playoff games at home instead of playing in frigid conditions where their offense can't succeed. So that's one thing. And another thing is they lost 5 linebackers over the last few weeks.
Yeah, no,
They
defensively they got hurt. I mean, they do get a pass a little bit for that. I totally agree with that.
Having to get Justin Houston off the streets, that tells you how bad this situation was for the Dolphins. And not having Bradley Chubb was the biggest factor. They really didn't have the pass rush they needed.
Yeah.
On the other side, George Karlaftis and Chris Jones, they were bringing it for the Chiefs. They had one of the best defenses this year. Kudos to Steve Spagnuolo for building up a young, hungry, and aggressive defense. Good from all 3 levels: linemen, linebackers, secondary. This team, they're going to go to Buffalo. It's going to be a tough matchup. But I mean, that defense has kind of carried them this season when the chief wide receivers really weren't showing up. Now, Rashae Rice, their rookie receiver, he's kind of come on lately. But let's see what happens in their first road game in the playoffs in Lord knows what. I think it's 8-9 years.
I kind of feel like they're going to win. I know this sounds crazy, and it's funny because Buffalo basically matched the score that I think I said, 31-17. But in that game, Buffalo does what Buffalo does. They jump out to a big lead, and they just don't consistently run the ball. Like, just run the ball. Like, there's a point in the game where you don't need touchdowns, just first downs. Just punt. Be happy to punt. You've got Mason Rudolph on the other side. I mean, you should have no fear. And yet we go into the point at one point in the game, it's 24-17, and it felt like Pittsburgh might have a puncher's chance. I don't know. Buffalo just feels like every time you think they figured it out, even when they win, they just do weird things. I mean, they had 368 total yards. They had 24 first downs. They didn't have any turnovers, which is a good point on Josh Allen. Give him credit for that. But it just feels like if they'd have played that same game against the Chiefs, we're talking about a different game.
There would have been a couple turnovers. There would have been some drop passes. I mean, the Bills are banged up. Diggs got hurt in this game. So, yeah, it's good that they got the 2 seed and they're going to be able to host this matchup. I don't know what's going to happen, to be honest with you. That'll be the best matchup of the weekend outside of Detroit and Tampa. But I could not give you a winner right now. I would just be flipping a coin at this point because Buffalo can beat Kansas City in the regular season, but they cannot. They haven't proved that they can beat them in the postseason. Over 2 right now.
Yeah. Well, let's go ahead and go into the divisional round matchups because we'll talk about the other games from the wild card through that. All right, Houston at Baltimore, Saturday at 3:30 p.m. Houston is playing with house money at this time. I mean, they were playing with house money last week, but they're definitely playing with house money this week. Part of me wants to do the whole, hey, they pull a Green Bay and they come in guns blazing, big balls and all, but I just think Baltimore's defense is better. I do think Lamar Jackson has to answer the same question that Dak does. That can you win a playoff game? Because I think Lamar's won 1 playoff game. And even that one was like that ugly one against the Chargers a couple years ago where it was just, I say a couple, it was like 5 years ago, I guess.
Well, it was a COVID year against the Titans, actually.
Was it? Well, yeah, COVID year against, I knew it was that. I thought it was Chargers, Titans. But either way.
Yeah, that was his first playoff game against the Chargers.
Yeah, that was that weird game where it was really ugly and the Chargers pulled it out, actually. But anyway, so Lamar has that question. Now, in saying that, I think that the Texans defense will give up some plays. I think this is a close game. I think this is a higher scoring game than what people think. But I do think you have to go back and remember there have been times this year where the Texans offense has struggled. I just feel that I don't know. I hate to do the destiny thing, but man, it really feels like it's the Ravens' year this year.
Name a flaw on that team. I mean, they don't have Mark Andrews, and they look even more dangerous now more than ever. Maybe rest, like you said, never want to rest your
Yeah, I did
quarterback.
not like sitting him that last week before the bye week. I think that is just, I don't know, man. That's just dumb. I mean, I legitimately believe that. That is just dumb.
So that could possibly play a role. There could be some rust in the first half, and Houston jumps up. They might go into the half up 13-9, and everybody's losing their minds that the Houston Texans could actually pull this off. So yeah, if they can take advantage of that, then Houston has a chance. I still think they're a couple years away.
I do
They
too.
didn't see the expectations, but Baltimore, the best thing they did was get Roquan Smith last season from the Bears.
He's so good.
He complements Patrick Queen so well, and
And
that's just
he shows you that even in this era, because a lot of the thing was with Chicago was like, we don't want to pay an off the ball linebacker so much. Off the ball linebackers still matter when they're that good.
yeah. And now we're starting to. There's going to be a shift again, back to linebackers.
I think so.
Back to tight ends, back to line. Well, linemen's are always been. Yeah, off the ball linebackers, they were devalued, and running backs are being devalued. But now you see James Cook, you see the value in him, you see the value in Roquan Smith and Patrick Queen, Sam Laporta at tight end. You're seeing a resurgence back the other way. So yeah,
and the reason why, sorry to cut you off, but the reason why, and it's if you're listening to the show, I'm not trying to be a smart ass, but we've been talking about this since the beginning of the year. Big play offenses lead to defenses to start playing shell, meaning back your safeties up. That's what the Packers did against Dallas. Force you to throw down the middle. That's why Jake Ferguson had 10 catches for 93 yards and 3 touchdowns. That's where we're going. Smart teams. And if Dallas wants to be smart, hold the road with the idea of we need to run the ball more, because that's where the NFL is about to evolve to. All the talk of the running back means nothing anymore. Yeah, that's not. Let's talk in 5 years when we've got running backs going back up to 1,600, 1,700 yards, because teams are playing the let's not get beat by the big play. Let's force teams to move the ball, as you like to say, matriculate the ball down the field. We're going to see more and more of that. I truly believe that.
Yeah, it's just the safest way to play. It's an old mentality. It's an old school mentality, but it is effective even in today's NFL.
I think it's more effective now because everybody's trying to protect against the big play. The Kansas City Chiefs have figured it out. And no, that doesn't mean that you're going to have Isaiah Pacheco hit for 250 yards a game running. But what it does is you start with that, and then you start throwing the ball on top of that. The old adage is, you run to throw. It actually never was like that. It was always you throw to run. I mean, that's what Dallas did so well in the 90s. Go break down and wins. Break down Troy Aikman's numbers and look how in the first half he'd be 13 of 18 for 165 yards and 2 touchdowns, or a touchdown, and then Emmett got a couple touchdowns at goal line. And then in the second half, Aikman would be 3 of 7 for 42 yards because you just let Emmett carry. We're now going to see it actually done the way the Chiefs do. They soften you up. They get your safeties coming back down the field because your running back's working. Then they start hitting you over the top. Now, of course, all of Kansas City's receivers drop the ball, but still, the idea is there. And I think that's where we're headed.
Dude, Kansas City, the one player I got to give kudos to is their kicker, Harrison Butker.
Dude.
He made 4 field goals in that condition. He was 4 for 4. I mean, that ball must have felt like a brick.
Well, yeah, and let's be honest, the field was better for the Buffalo-Pittsburgh game, the field. Not the whole thing, but the field. And I'm not trying to say that they shouldn't have postponed. They were right in postponing that game. Look, the snow games are all fun, but when you literally have a travel ban and snow is at like waist deep, that's not the playoff game you want. But by the time everything they cleared it out and warmed the field up, Kansas City's field was worse than Buffalo's field.
Yeah, that field was bad. I mean, it was so bad and so cold that Mahomes, his helmet shattered on a tackle. he had to get a backup helmet. So yeah, it's pretty crazy in that game.
Yeah, don't you love this whole let's protect our quarterback? But hey, he can play 2 plays with a broken helmet. Like you're telling me that one of the officials could not see that his plastic helmet had literally shattered. Um,
Or
but
that someone would have at least pointed it out to them,
yeah, exactly. Like, hey, his helmet's shattered. You might want to do something. We've got all these cameras, and there's like 60,000 people in here. We all see this. Uh-oh, you have finished the tea.
Oh, I can taste a little bit more now.
All right, let's
Maybe I
go
should
ahead.
have mixed it
Let's
up a
go ahead
little
and
bit.
go Green Bay at San Francisco. This game is Saturday night. Look, I you give Green Bay credit. You tip the hat to them. They came into Dallas. They had no, qualms, balls against the wall, all that. They're going to probably do that again against San Francisco. I could see them making it close early, but San Francisco is just a better team. I think San Francisco will wear that defense down.
This will be the most beautiful uniform game of the weekend,
Oh, yes, it will.
in my opinion. Green Bay's on a roll. Jordan Love's looking when he does those drop back passes, he's looking more and more like Aaron Rodgers. He's looking really comfortable in this team, but their youth is going to catch up to him against a well coached, talent laden team.
Yeah.
They got, especially on offense, they're not going to stop Christian McCaffrey
Nah.
and Deebo Samuel and Brandon Ayuk and George Kittle, and Brock Purdy. And then hell, they might just give Juszczyk 3 touchdowns just off of passes and little short yardage runs. So it's gonna be hard to just stop them on offense. And then you think about defense, they got probably arguably the best linebacker in the game, and Fred Warner can cover anybody. They got Bosa on one side, they got Chase Young on the other. They got one of the best man-to-man cover corners in Travarius Ward. Talanoa Hafunga's been out for the season,
Yeah.
and Steve Lutz has done a really good job. The San Francisco defensive coordinator, the one that replaced D'Amico Ryans, he's done a great job of rallying them around, and they're playing really good defensive football right now. So they're well coached. This is not a knock on the Packers. It's just more
Oh, no.
praise on how the 49ers are just playing so well, and they're well coached. They have a lot of talent. This might be more of a blowout. This might be a tight game in the first half, and then San Francisco is going to enforce their will in the second half. But they've been to the playoffs before. They've been to conference championships. A lot of those guys are still there from the 2019 team that went to the Super Bowl. So experience, talent, coaching, it's going to win. Matchup of 2 friends, Kyle Shanahan and Matt LaFleur, who coached together. I really think it's going to be a San Francisco 2-touchdown win.
And by the way, we always talk about the Cowboys and 49ers playoff history and the Cowboys and Packers playoff history. Packers and Niners. I mean, over the last since 1995 when they upset the Niners in the playoffs, and I still contend that's literally what gave Dallas that 3rd playoff Super Bowl. I don't know if they beat San Francisco in that year, but ever since then, it just feels like the NFC comes down to the Packers and the Niners about every 4 or 5 years, and I think it's going to be a fun game. I do think Green Bay kind of playing, willy nilly, nothing to lose. We'll have some big plays, but when you play a consistent team, that usually catches up to you. All right, let's go to Tampa Bay at Detroit. That's the first game on Sunday. Oh, by the way, real quick, you brought up a good point. It was done because of the weather, but the NFL having to spread out the playoffs in round 2 or round 1 with it 2 on Saturday, 2 on Sunday, 2 on Monday. I don't know how you can do that every year on Monday because you're putting it in a non-TV time where a lot of people are at work. But it was fun as a football fan to have 2 games every day on that.
It worked out this year just because Monday was MLK Day.
Yeah.
So a lot of people were already off. And then depending on where they live, they might have been working from home just because of the storms.
Yeah.
But yeah, I kind of want to see that going forward if it's possible. Just having 2-2-2, it's kind of nice and just in the afternoon so you can go about your business during the morning, wake up, get some coffee, get chores done, and then 3 o'clock hits, boom, football. I kind of liked it.
No, I totally agree. All right, so let's go though to Tampa at Detroit Sunday at 2 p.m. I'm on it. I'm on the train, dude. I think Tampa pulls off the upset. I think that they're that gritty, gutty team that just finds a way to win. It's weird because they beat the Eagles 32-9, yet it never even felt that close. And I know a lot of that is the Eagles' issues and the Eagles. It's kind of funny. I'm asking you right now: if you're as a Cowboy fan, would you rather be the Cowboys or the Eagles right now going into next year?
Cowboys ish. Because with the Eagles, I'm really not sure what's going on with their coordinators. They have a similar issue that the Cowboys are with this their play calling. They just got worse. They abandoned the side defensive coordinator to have Patricia come in,
That was
and they
terrible.
got worse. And they got worse. And I will say, Pat Patricia looks like he lost some weight, so good for him. So whatever diet he's on, is keep up the good work. Uh, but yeah, they they look like a shell of their former selves. And I know there's a lot of injuries,
Yeah.
especially with AJ Brown and then Jalen Hurts middle finger on his thrown hand. That I mean, outside of that, still like, and then of course going into next season, Jason Kelsey, it's been reported now that he's going to retire. He'll be in the Hall of Fame in
You
5
got to
years.
feel like Lane Johnson and Fletcher Cox and Brandon Graham are all winding down at this point.
All in their early to mid 30s. Yeah, they've been there their whole careers. Yeah, I could definitely see that happening. I figure Cox and Graham and Lane have at least one more year in them, but maybe it might be a trickle down effect where they just all say, you know what, we had a good run, we got a championship out of it, just hang it up. The least Fletcher Cox will be a Hall of Famer, maybe not first ballot. Lane Johnson, I think he will eventually. Just if you really think about it, he was really the premier right
I
tackle
think
for his
Lane
generation.
Johnson's a first rounder. I mean, a first round ballot Hall of Fame. I think Fletcher Cox. I think it might take him a couple rounds just because I still go back to if DeMarcus Ware didn't make it in the first year. But
Right.
Lane Johnson, I mean, Lane Johnson for 6 years, 7 years is considered maybe the best right tackle in football. And maybe it's because we're Cowboy fans, so we know more on this side, but it does feel like to me, like, I mean, the Eagles still have a lot of questions like Jalen Hurts. Like, where is Jalen Hurts in the can he win you a championship? And yeah, I know they got to a Super Bowl, but they didn't win. And that offense took a huge step back this year. That defense took a little bit more of a step back, but I mean, we knew going in they would struggle because they had a lot of 1-year deals last year. I mean, that last year was kind of a Eagles. We're trying to win it now, and if we don't, we're going to have to figure some things out defensively. But they felt offensively they were going to be fine. DeAndre Swift, he kind of like Pollard. He's got decent numbers, but I never felt that DeAndre Swift took over the game. Hell, all we heard last night was, "Oh, the Eagles are going to come into this game and they're going to reestablish their run." At one point, they had 32 passes and 9 runs, and the game didn't dictate it that bad. Yeah, they ended up losing 32-9. But for most of that game, it was a 1.5 possession type game where they easily could have stuck with their running game.
Yeah, I would say the one good thing Todd Bowles did as defensive coordinator, now head coach, is make sure he has a huge defensive line. And they sprinkled in another undersized Pitt defensive lineman named Kalijah Cansey in there, who's been disruptive and had a great rookie year.
Yep.
Yeah. When I say undersized Pitt defensive lineman, you have to think about Aaron Donald. I mean, he was basically the same height and weight as Donald coming into the league. So that comparison drew. I wish the Cowboys had picked him up, but he got signed a little earlier in the draft. He had a great game. It beat Vita Vea, huge guy. So it's usually hard to.
He doesn't get enough talk, by the way. Vea does not get enough talk about maybe being a top 3 interior player, old school, but still. I mean, even last year when Dallas beat them in the playoffs at the beginning of the year, the two times that Dallas lost to the Bucs in 2021 and 2022, or 2022 and 2023, Vea had a huge game. That dude is he just does everything you want an interior tackle to do.
So just running on the Buccaneers is hard as is. And then they just didn't commit to it, and they put they put the ball in the hands of their best player, Jalen Hurts, but he wasn't all there. Like, he wasn't healthy. Scheme wasn't good. They do not look like the same Eagles team that they were last season when they were having a great game. I mean, Steechan, Went to Indianapolis, became head coach. Great move. They look good this year. They almost won the division, but I didn't think it would be that big of a drop off
No.
when Steach and Gannon left. But yeah, those coordinators, they need to figure that out. Sirianni needs to
Do you
do
think he's
something
fired?
because there was a rumor that he would be fired. I'm like, he's had 3 really good years. It just fell flat this year. Like, give him a chance
I
to.
mean, the
He just
Eagles.
took it to the.
The Eagles fired their Super Bowl winning coach within 2 years. I mean, this guy got to a Super Bowl and lost. And you know, and it's the same thing we talk about the Cowboys. The whole story of the season is, you know, Dallas played well, and then had just the worst time to have the worst game. You can chalk that up to, hey, that just happens. And it does. It just happens sometimes. I mean, hey, look at, 2008 Dallas Mavericks or 2007 Dallas Mavericks, number 1 seed, and they just play the worst matchup that they could play in the first round and they get beat. You can make the case that, hey, that's just an aberration. The Eagles were 10-1 and did not win 12 games. Think about that. 10-1. In fact, I think I heard on ESPN that in the game they said that's the first time that's ever happened. That team has went 10-1 and did not win 12 games to end the season.
That's incorrect because I remember the 85 or 86 Jets having that similar start, and they lost their last 5 games. They finished 10-6. They ended up winning the first round, and they lost. Yeah, it was the Gastineau. They won the first round, but then they played the Browns. Don't ask me why I remember all this. They played the Browns in the divisional round, and I think it was the 86 playoffs. 85 or 86. Anyway, Gastineau had that big penalty because if he had not made that penalty, they probably would have won the game and went into the AFC title game. Because I know Mike Greenberg always brings that game up.
Well, they still finished with 11 wins, though. They got a playoff win. Either way, the point is they were 10-1 and they collapsed. Like, they utterly collapsed. I do think that there's a difference in that. And I do think, right or wrong, Jeffrey Lurie is not like Jerry Jones. I also think I think a lot of Jerry Jones is his age. I think if this was all happening 20 years ago, I think Jerry is more willing to be like, let's just tear it down. Let's go for 2 years, figure everything out. I think his age, but I don't think the Eagles feel that way. I don't think Lurie is, again, they literally fired a guy who finally won a Super Bowl for the Eagles, and within 2.5 years, he was out. So I don't know if
Chip Kelly had 3 years. He was 10-6 his first 2. Had 1 bad year in 2015. They fired him. Doug Peterson, he won division titles, went to the playoffs. One bad year. Yeah, won a Super Bowl. COVID year, terrible. They fired him. So yeah, it's very possible it could happen. But Sirianni just seems like such an Eagle guy. Seems like a perfect Eagles coach. I think Lurie likes him. I think he'll. I don't think his job is in jeopardy. I think Sirianni will be the Eagles coach in 2024. He'll be a little bit on the hot seat if he doesn't improve the coordinators and game plan. With all that talent the Eagles have, they should be a little bit. They shouldn't be 11-6. But if they don't make the playoffs next year, then yeah, I could see where that would happen.
Oh, I don't. I think they have to make a title game. I don't know, and I'm not saying that's wrong. Again, you and I literally were talking about, hey, maybe it's time for Dallas to make changes. All right, anyway, so who do you have in the Tampa Detroit game?
Oh, that's the most fun game. I'm gonna go ahead and go with the home team. If Tampa is so good at getting pressure, but Detroit has one of the best lines in football. Jared Goff is night and day. If he's protected, they win. If he's not protected, they're going to lose by 2 touchdowns. It's just that simple. Now, Detroit did beat Tampa in Tampa earlier this season. It was an ugly game. They won 20-6.
So the Eagles, they won 25-11 against Tampa in Tampa earlier this year.
So, I mean, you could flip a coin. I think it'll be a close game, but I think Detroit will pull it out at the end.
All right, Kansas City at Buffalo. That'll finish up the NFL weekend for next weekend. This game's Sunday at 5:30. I know Buffalo is, again, back to being the hot team. And I know this is Kansas City's first time on the road in the Patrick Mahomes era. But until they do it, I don't trust Buffalo to not pull a 3 turnover game and Josh Allen to have a couple plays where it's like, dude, just go down, and he tries to fight and he jumps up or something. I got Kansas City winning this game.
The biggest factor to me in this game is rest. Kansas City, they played Saturday. They're going to play Sunday night. 8 days off. Buffalo, they played Monday. Now they're playing Sunday. That's only 6 days.
But that's
they're at home.
That's a normal progression, though, of if you play a Monday night game. To be fair, they have a system in place.
You're given 2-time Super Bowl winning coach Andy Reid 2 extra days to prepare against a team that they already lost to, and they can learn from it. They almost won that game too.
Yeah.
So I feel that I initially went with the Bills in this.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe the short rest might be the best thing that happened to Buffalo. I'm going to go ahead and stick. You know what? I earlier today I said all the home teams are going to win, so I'm going to go ahead and stick with it. I'm going to say Buffalo is going to win.
All right, so let's move on now. We're going to wrap up the show with some coaching moves. Now, we're going to do a bigger show the week of in between the championship games, the conference championship games and the Super Bowl about Bill Belichick and Nick Saban and Pete Carroll and what that means, because there's not many times in your life when you see maybe the 3 most iconic coaches of a generation all leave at least their team. Now there's questions about, and this is another reason why I want to wait, because there's questions about, will Bill Belichick, he's supposedly meeting with Atlanta. I still think, okay, so let's go back to you and me talking off the air. And I've said it on the air, but I've been saying for 3 years now, I saw a path where Bill Belichick ends up as the Cowboy coach. And this has literally happened exactly like if you're Dallas and if you're Jerry Jones and you want to keep the players, but feel they need a change, this would be a natural progression. Bill Belichick, he's 15 wins from the record. He's always glowingly talked about what the Dallas Cowboys of the 70s meant to him. And literally one of the reasons why he wanted to be a defensive coordinator in the NFC East was he felt that he wanted to go up against the Cowboys. Him and Jerry Jones, by all accounts, apparently have a really good relationship. I also think he realizes he's 70, whatever. He's not necessarily going, hey, I need to be the GM. So we don't know where Bill Belichick is going. That's my point. So we're going to have that show later, but we'll finish up with the fact that the Patriots and him leave. They've already named Jared Mayo their head coach. Alabama's Nick Saban's lead. They've already named Kalen DeBear their head coach. Pete Carroll leaves Seattle. They're the only ones that haven't named a coach yet. I know a lot of people think Dan Quinn's the favorite. My issue with that is if you're going to fire Pete Carroll, why are you going to bring in one of his disciples? I mean, if you're going to fire him, start over. Why do you bring in a guy that was under him? That's literally just kind of continuing the same thing that Pete Carroll did.
Yeah. The thing about that, there is someone they're not mentioning, someone that loves the West Coast. Maybe not that north in the West Coast, but somewhat similar. Jim Harbaugh, he does like the West Coast area.
And he coaches a lot like Pete Carroll. I mean, that would be a natural, you're just getting younger with the same kind of college rah-rah. Now, I will say this. I think Pete Carroll's rah-rah is more motivational. Jim, and I'm not saying Jim Harbaugh's not a great coach. Jim Harbaugh's a great coach. He's proven that. But they motivate different, but it does feel kind of like the same type of hire.
Yeah, but, with Harbaugh, you're going to – I just feel he's been elite every single coaching position he's been at. So
San Diego.
Yeah.
Stanford.
Stanford.
San Francisco. Yeah, I mean, I know it ended up working out in the long run, but that whole battle with him and Jed York was the GM at the time, I think, for the Niners, and just that stupid fight. And yeah, they ended up getting right in the long run, but that's you didn't know that at the time. It was stupid that San Francisco basically picked York over Jim Harbaugh. But I think Jim Harbaugh rubs people the wrong way. I think that's one of the reasons why Jim Harbaugh kind of reminds me of Jimmy Johnson. 5 years might be the max for him at a place because his style is so finger on your neck type. He doesn't motivate with success. He motivates with failure. And again, I'm not saying that's a knock. I'm just saying that's a style. And that style is really hard to say, hey, that's my guy for the next 10 years.
Yeah, but he's been effective. He
Oh no,
hasn't had
yeah.
a fail. Yeah, he's led his teams to championships, great regular seasons, and it's all based off the same old school philosophy of great defense, strong running game, and excellent kickers. In Seattle, they got Jason Myers, they got Kenneth Walker the third. I think it's the third. And they got a young, aggressive defense, and I could definitely see him being placed there. Now with the LA Chargers, it's also it was in California. They got
That feels
Herbert.
like a perfect fit.
It seems like it'd be. I mean, he'll make some tweaks on it. He has Cameron Dicker. Dicker the kicker, one of the better kickers, one of the better young kickers in the league.
I think you're overrating his kicker thing. I will say that. Like, I don't think Jim Harbaugh.
Go everywhere he's coached. Just look at the kickers. Jake Moody with Michigan. David Green Acres with the 49ers. He has solid tight end too at every position. So at every coaching stop. So yeah.
What would you think about? What would you think about Jim Harbaugh as a Dallas coach?
I mean, I would love it. Because I know what I'm going to get with him. I know he can get this team to the promised land. Will it happen? No, that ain't gonna happen.
I mean, Jim Harbaugh's not one of those that has been like, I've got to control the personnel. Like, you've got Will McClay, who, we can talk about Jerry Jones and Jim. Will McClay's the guy that makes the drafts and stuff. So you've got a good football guy in as your GM. I think that buffer allows coaches and also I think Jerry Jones's age, again, I just don't think he's that like finger in the pie as much. I think Jim Harbaugh would do well in Dallas if they came to that. And I don't think they're going to, but if they decided to move on, I think if they move on from McCarty, it would be quick. I don't think you're letting that sit over 2 or 3 weeks. I think we'd already start hearing rumblings now.
I mean, rumblings not just from you and me or other.
No, yeah, legitimate. Yeah, good point. Good point.
Yeah, because we're not legitimate. So,
so of the three, I think Belichick still coaches. I think Saban retires, and I think Carroll is more of if the right job hits, maybe. I think Pete Carroll truly loves the Seahawks. Like that's that's one of those things where if he ended up moving on, and honestly, he'd be a good fit for Dallas for what they do, because again, he's not needing to be in control of the front office. He's happy with, you just give me a team and I'll coach it. Now, saying that, I would always wonder though, is Carroll's heart still in Seattle? Because man, his comments after all that, it just feels like that he's just completely stung.
Yeah, 14 years there, back-to-back winning records. He had a playoff appearance last season, so they were on the right track. They have a young nucleus. It's kind of shocking to me as well. I thought they were going to be building up for next season. You can tell they're like a player or two away, maybe just really a quarterback away. So it kind of shocks me that they did this, but I don't know. I don't know what Seattle's going to do, but Schneider is a pretty solid GM. He's had a good track record in the league. So he probably has someone in mind already. It ain't gonna be Belichick, but it has someone in mind.
Yeah, and they don't have the GM that traded 3 picks or got 3 picks from Cleveland and then traded them back in that that original biography that we watched called Draft Day. That didn't really happen. Oh wow, I'm confused. But Nick Saban retiring, the college dominoes fell, and boy, they fell quick. Alabama immediately went Kalen DeBoer. He moves from Washington to Alabama. We'll talk in the future about where we think these are good hires or not. Jed Fish leaves Arizona to become Washington's head coach, and then Brent Brennan leaves San Antonio State to become Arizona's head coach. I will say this. At the end of the day, I think Washington is the best, that they came out best with all this, because they replaced a really good coach with a guy in Fish who I think is on the up and rising. And they're about to go into the Pac or the Big Ten, so it's doubtful that he will leave in 2 or 3 years. If he starts winning in the Big Ten, that's going to put them right into the middle of the playoffs. I like Arizona's hire of Brent Brennan. I don't like Alabama's hire. I'm just going to go with that. I don't think that that's a great hire. I don't think he's going to tear the program down. I'm not saying Alabama's going to be 3-9 in a couple of years, but I don't think Alabama reaches anything close to what Nick Saban with DeBoer as their head coach.
I think for the first couple of years they'll be okay just because they'll have the talent. But whatever happens after that is just going to be recruiting. And can Alabama get those guys? You're starting to see Texas get a lot of guys. Isaiah Bond already transferred over to Texas from Alabama. Their stud wide receiver. So
That's a
and
huge
then Texas.
Texas.
Yeah, that's a very huge deal. That's almost symbolic of like a changing ship right now in college football.
I agree.
Uh, but for the next 2 or 3 years, I think it's going to be pretty normal. Like what we've seen, like Georgia's going to be great, Alabama, now Texas, Michigan will still be really good. So I want to see what happens by like 2028, closer to 2030, when everything has settled, dust has settled, and now we see the new college football with the 12 teams, coaches entrenched, recruiting is pretty stable. I want to see if there's a new power that arises.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I think we're getting into an era kind of like the NFL where there's not going to be a true power. I think there's going to be Georgia 1 year, Texas 1 year, Michigan 1 year, and then you have the odd year where a non-power 5 has that one, a Liberty type that has that special year and they get it. Especially with 12 teams, more of those small teams will get in, and that's going to lead to upsets in the playoffs.
And I will say this, whoever can control the transfer portal is probably going to be the next great coach coming up. Right now, it's Lane Kiffin. He's been doing a really good job at Ole Miss doing that. But who knows who's going to be that next great coach? And you might see players being driven to Liberty or Coastal Carolina because they're consistently good and sneaking into the playoffs because now the playoffs expanded. So their mindset, they're like, hey, I can go here, become a star, get an opportunity to play in the playoffs, get money.
Yep.
So we don't know what the new philosophy is on recruiting or on with the transfer portal or with the NIL. So it's going to be kind of fun to see strategies and books get released on, winning in the new college era, how to, by Lane Kiffin, how I use NIL and transfer portal to turn Ole Miss into a dynasty.
Well, and as great as he's done, Ole Miss still hasn't reached to that tier yet. It takes a lot. I do think we're going to have some tweaks. I as much as I'm 100% fine with the Neal and the transfer, I do think they need to move the transfer portal out of the bowl season. Start it on the new year or January. Just do it like the NFL. The free agency begins at this time. It's always 11:59 of the official, what they call the last business day of the year. And then the next day is the new business day and free agents open. Just do it like that, and I think everybody will be happy. But, yeah, it's going to be interesting. Oh, by the way, Cam Ward decides to stay in college. He's going to go to Miami. I don't get that move. I mean, I get staying in college, but go somewhere where you have a chance to, to do something. Not that, Miami's fine, but nobody's going, oh, wow, Cam Ward's with Miami. Holy crap, they're a top 10 team next year. But anyway, we will, of course, continue to have shows, even if the Texans lose. OutDrank The Coverage. We're used to doing this. When the Cowboys lose, we shift into just covering the rest of the NFL. And, of course, again, we will have a big coaching show the weekend between the title game and the Super Bowl when they have the bye week, and we'll get more into Bill Belichick, Nick Saban, and Pete Carroll. That is going to do it. Thank you, Noah. I told you, it's therapeutic to talk about this stuff after that. It still sucks, don't get me wrong, but I don't feel as bad. And I do think that I used to be one of those that when the Cowboys lost, I didn't watch the rest of the playoffs. Now I'm the exact opposite. I force myself to, and it helps. By the halfway of the Rams-Lions, I was more into that game, and because that was a really underrated game. That was the best game of the week. Let's be honest, the playoffs kind of like the season, kind of shitty. The first week of the playoffs were kind of boring. Blowouts, you just blah. That one was at least exciting, so it got me getting through that. But anyway, as always, if you have any questions, thoughts, or comments, go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead.
Go ahead. No, go ahead, man.
Rams and Lions had the best drama just because Stafford's returning to Detroit in a playoff game to, trying to prevent them from getting a first playoff win in 32 years. So there was a lot of drama going in that game. That crowd was hype.
I know it was just a great game, and it was a game. And I know some people are bitching about the officials, but it was nice just to be a 1-point game, and nobody's like, "Oh my God, the losing staff, they should be fired because of this, and this." Or it was just a good playoff game. One team won. That happens. It doesn't. We don't always have to be so like melodramatic. I mean, again, with Dallas, maybe because of circumstances of where they're at. But I'm just saying, in general, sometimes you just lose a playoff game. It's okay. You move on. But anyway, any questions, thoughts, or comments, you can email us, odtcnfl@gmail.com. You can find us on Twitter at OutDrank. Yeah. Any more comments before we head out?
No, I'm just looking forward to the divisional round. I'm very hyped for it.
Cowboys are going to get to the... Oh, wait, no. Damn it. I'm playing Madden tonight. I'm getting the Cowboys to the Super Bowl. Anyway, until next week, he's intern Noe. I'm Terry. This is OutDrank The Coverage, brought to you by Grandeur Pest Solutions, right here on L4 Media.